Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Cornhole Culture podcast. In today's episode, we really want to reference growth. I think growth is really, really important, and we're going to use a reference from our last episode, which was about confidence and kind of what you can do once you have the confidence and how you can use the confidence to grow as a player and maybe on your run to pro.
Yeah, once you start becoming better, I was talking to Tyler earlier about how when you become better, you don't realize you're becoming better. You don't realize that you're growing. It's like when somebody goes on a weight loss thing and 2-3 months go by and they don't see themselves that they lost any weight. And the people around you don't realize that you lost any weight. But if somebody that hasn't seen you in 3-4 months sees you all of a sudden, they're like, "Oh my God, you lost so much weight." It's like, really? Like, I didn't notice, or nobody else around you notices. So it's kind of the same thing with your play style and your game is you start getting better, but nobody really notices around you. Maybe because those people around you play with you all the time. So they're probably getting better. And, you don't really notice your growth in the game until you probably leave your area and go play somewhere else where and nobody has seen you before, or they haven't seen you in a while, and they're like, "Oh my God, Miguel got really, really way much better since the last time that we seen him play." But you don't realize that.
Or worse. You can get worse.
Jacob Shaw. But so it's like, you don't realize how good you're getting. So I guess the confidence is, is still not there because you don't know that you're actually getting better. And, one of the new things in the ACL with statistics, with stats, is that, you have your PPR and so forth. And now your skill level is based on your PPR. So if for example, an advanced player average in the nation, I believe, is like above an 8.5. If you're below an 8.5, you're probably a competitive player. So let's say you started off the year and you're at 8.0 PPR. As the year went on, your PPR actually started increasing without you even noticing.
Right.
If you actually played with somebody all the time, and let's say, and they always beat you. So, let's say I'm playing against Tyler. I always beat Tyler. I beat Tyler 9 out of 10 times. And Tyler's PPR is 8.0, mine is 8.5. As the year goes by, Tyler's PPR goes from 8.0 to 8.5, but I'm still beating him 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
Because my PPR went from 8.5 to a 9. And we don't notice this as, as the year goes on and we start as we start growing, I guess. So these new stats that the ACL is compiling and getting all this data, it's actually very true to your skill level. And now they're using it to move people from a competitive to advanced player. And that the ACL is now looking at stats to make sure that you're not sandbagging and move you up to your right division. If you're in competitive too long and you start to get better and better, the ACL will call your regional director and tell them, "Hey, they got too good. They need to go up."
One other thing that the ACL did was not necessarily to compare player to player, but to compare player against the average playing field, is the rounders, the doubles rounders that they incorporated in the ACL Opens. The ACL Opens is every single player in the building plays with a doubles partner in a rounders against the whole entire rest of the building. And at the end of it, based off of your record, your point differential, and your overall, like how you did, ranks you in tier 1, 2, 3, or 4. So what we noticed is, shout out to Johnny Cortez and Oscar Ortega at the first ACL Open, who are, competitive, well-known competitive players out here in Chicago go to the first ACL Open ever and get in Division One and make a good run in doubles and singles. So it was crazy to see that these competitive players that we know as competitive players were putting up a fight in the top tier 1 division. And you're talking against a really stacked playing field. So it was interesting to see how these lower level players play against this higher level, against other competition. Maybe it was because they're familiar with them and they weren't scared of the bigger name people that they never met before, or they put on a really good show, and that definitely boosted their confidence. They still came back to Chicago and, to my understanding, play competitive. No?
Yeah, they play competitive. We actually ended up moving Oscar up to advance maybe 3-4 regionals after that,
Mm-hmm.
because he won competitive singles. I believe he won competitive doubles. So it was time for him to move up
Mm-hmm.
into the advanced division. Johnny Cortez, he hasn't been able to move up yet. He hasn't had a strong finish in competitive, but I think that just says everything about how hard our Chicago regional is.
Right.
You know?
Granted, Johnny Cortez hasn't made a strong run in a competitive Chicago regional against other people who are just like him and Oscar. So what we're really excited to see with this growth, with the growth of your individual sport or your individual game, or the growth of the sport overall, is these stats. At some point, these top tier competitive players who are consistently getting third or fourth, who are throwing an 8.5 PPR in the competitive finals, are going to get moved up against the better players in the advanced level. And what it will do is really even out the playing field of the ACL as a whole. Another thing that we're going to talk about is how this can affect some of the non-pros who can hang with some of the lower tier, the middle tier, and even the elite tier players, which I know every single state has that one player that they say is better than a lot of pros. But they're not a pro. They don't have the title. They don't get the recognition. They could probably go across the country if they didn't have an ACL profile, or let's say they did have an ACL profile and they weren't keeping track of PPR, and play in Arizona's competitive regional and absolutely dominate. It's just not fair. The stats is really going to help you track your growth, and let other people know where you stand based off of performances and placements.
Right. I mean, if people didn't already know the names, Derek Holland, Josh Holland, Phil Lopez, Alex Hicks, Steven Schroeder up in
Yep.
Wisconsin. All these are non-pros, or yes, all these are non-pros, but they are pro level players.
Look at Berkeley Pear, who played with the GOAT Mac Guy in an open. Um, I mean, these players that some people never heard of are well known enough to be playing with the absolute top players or against some of the top players. Tucker Stills, before he was a pro, he went to beat Jamie Graham and Matt Guy at the Regalia tournament out in Kansas.
Yep.
And this is a non-pro. I don't know Tucker personally. I never really talked to Jamie and Matt, but their games speak for themselves. And this guy, did he not beat them both in the same tournament?
I believe so, yes.
That's absolutely insane. And that this was before the PPR. This was before lower level players really got the recognition that they deserved. And now numbers don't lie. There's no misleading about where you stand, blah, blah, blah. This is your PPR. This is the range of social, competitive, and advanced. And it's really how, once you get the confidence to throw the way that you want to throw and be confident in the way that you throw, you can track. My PPR from August to December averaged in the low 8s. And now in May of 2021, man, I'm out here throwing high 8s, low 9s.
Right.
I really, really have upped my game, and that's a confidence booster as it is. You can see growth, and that's the growth that you're not able to see on your own without the stats, especially when you're playing against the same exact people every single week who are getting equally as good as you at the same pace, meaning nobody notices. This player has been this much better than you for a long time, and you keep going up, and nobody, closes the gap or pulls away.
Right. Unless you're Steven Bernadette and just blow everybody out.
Absolutely right.
But now you're getting into these. There's so many tournaments now. It's summertime, you know. Um, all these tournaments are popping up. Um, all these old tournaments are popping up that usually pop up in the summer. There's a lot of cash tournaments here in Chicago that pop up all the time. But now in their flyers, they're saying non-pros, and this just benefits those people that we just mentioned: Phil Lopez, Steve Schroeder, everybody else that is non-pro that doesn't have the title, but it's as good as a pro. They can go and sweep this
Right.
tournament easy. Um, and I don't know if that will change now because there has been tournaments up here that they say non-pros or elite players.
Yeah, yeah.
So now
But
they're
the problem is that the discretion is based on the tournament director.
director, right?
So a tournament director that's running a tournament at a bar who doesn't really know much about, he can look you up on the ACL and find out if you're a pro or not. But if you're a snaky, really good elite player and you show up to this tournament, you don't have the pro status, and then you dominate the tournament and all the bar players and all the lower level social competitive players that came. And then the guy
Complain.
finds out after the tournament that, you're a snake and he knows exactly what you're doing and such. It's really hard to, it's really hard on the tournament director to use their own discretion for top tier players that aren't pros, that come from different states, or that you just slip through the cracks kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there was people asking me for the there's gonna be a minor fest this weekend down in central Illinois where there's a lot of money added. It's about $3,000 added to the pot. And it's a non-pro, and it's like, hey, are you still a pro? I was like, yeah, unfortunately I'm still a pro, so I can't go to the minor fest. It's like, well, it's not fair that you you don't get to go, but then all these other players that are technically better than me, Phil Lopez, John, like Cade, all these players that are probably as equal as me, they get to go because they don't have the title.
Right.
And it's just it's going to be interesting moving forward if tournament directors are going to use anything like PPR or something to kind of turn away players, especially when there's that much money added.
Right.
Especially when it's $1,000 of first place or something, because it doesn't matter when it's $100 first place or a little tournament. It's like, okay, whatever. But once it attracts people because of the money,
right,
then it gets really, really complicated and hard. And you can make exceptions because, okay, Miguel, you could go and play with somebody else, but then now you're opening up the floodgates, and all these pros are going to come out of nowhere. It's like, well, if Miguel could play since he's a pro, like, why can I play with this player or that player?
Yeah.
So it get Top Dog. There was the same thing. A and B players, Rudy wouldn't let people pair up with each other because they were too good in the B division. So you had to go find a lower player in the B division.
Mm-hmm.
This whole A and B blind draws is starting to get more difficult, especially up here in Chicago, because there's a player, A minus player, a B plus player,
Right,
a B minus player. So it's really hard. Depending on who's there, it depends on if you're an A or B player.
Miguel and I are really excited to see how PPR is going to change the game as a whole. PPR is going to be something that you can reference back, hopefully, months in the past. Use it to track your present, and obviously in the future, look back on how much growth you have made. I made a 0.5 PPR difference in 6 months, but in the last 3 months, I've went 0.6 or 0.7 higher than that. Starting for a social player who's throwing a 3, 4, 5 PPR saying, man, in 9 months, I went from a 5 to a 7.5. Now I'm a really good social player, and I think I'm ready to make the competitive jump.
Right.
Also, if you're a competitive player and you look back and you're like, I've been averaging a 7.0 for 8 months. What am I doing differently? How can my game improve? Numbers don't lie. What would Rob Bev say?
Yeah.
People lie,
Numbers don't.
numbers don't. The truth is you are getting better, or the truth is you have gotten worse. And PPR is going to eliminate the discrepancy between, whatever excuse you can make or blah, blah, blah. Another thing, just kind of to add in there, is, man, that was the best game of my life. Look at this. I threw 12, 12, 12, 12. And then you look and the score got like 17, 17. And they're like, yeah, but I kind of blew it. I threw an 8 and then a 7 and then a 10. And I kind of fell off. I don't know what happened. What probably happened is that you weren't as confident as you thought you were. And, got
In
nervous
late
towards the end of
games,
the
yeah,
game. And, yep.
can't close out.
Yeah. So confidence is really important to have in your back pocket. While you gain that confidence, or you can use this, what I'm about to say, as confidence is growth. How do you apply your confidence to your growth? How do you apply your growth to your confidence? Do you thank your growth to the confidence that you found in the last couple months? Or are you confident because of your growth? They're interchangeable. They piggyback off each other, and they're really, really, really important topics for lower level, middle level, top tier players to look at, and try and keep up with some of the best, because the game is only people in the game are only getting better. It's kind of disgusting.
And you can't grow if you don't move yourself up. If the ACL doesn't move you up, you should move yourself up.
Right.
If you're a social player and you know that, it's starting to get boring in the social division, or you start feeling more confident in social division, move yourself up. You're not going to get better because you're going to be stuck there. You're going to be stuck at the 7.5 PPR if you don't move up and play with better players. Better
Right.
players make you better. And that's the only way you could grow faster, by playing better players. So you need to, step up and move yourself up if you want to keep growing in the game. If you don't want to keep growing in the game and play social all your life, that's totally fine too. But eventually that's going to be a slow growth, but eventually you will, be a competitive player eventually, because of a slow growth. But if you want to have that fast paced growth, you need to move yourself up to compete with players that are better than you, because they will make you better.
Right. On the opposite end of the spectrum, some people could care less about stats. Some people forget that this game is started off as a backyard game for shits and giggles and blah, blah, blah. And the last thing that you care about is, on average, how many bags you put in the hole. It's an ego thing. It's a confidence booster. It's a boasting or, kind of standpoint. But PPR, we're a bunch of nerds. We buy jerseys and expensive bags, and we travel nationally. And you go to your neighbor's house and you tell them, like, yeah, I average a 9.7. Like, what does that mean? Well, I average 9 points, 9.7 points around. They're like, how do you get the 0.7? You're like, oh, because I track it over thousands of bags thrown. And they're like, you are absolutely nuts. I mean, not everybody cares. And this isn't something that you are forced to care about, but it's definitely something that you should be conscious of if you're looking to come up through the ranks.
Yeah, so definitely next, if you didn't get the platinum membership this year, and you're listening to this, you need to get the platinum membership for the ACL next year, right, to really look at your stats, to really see how you play over time. If you want to get better, stats are, when I look at my stats, I know I have to throw more bags in the hole. I know I need to stop blocking as much as I do, just because my PPR is in the 8.5 area, and it's because I block too much, and it's because I don't put bags in the hole. And you know, obviously the point differential is greater, or my opponent's PPR is actually lower when they play me compared to their average, because
Right.
there's a lot more blocks. So you need to look at that too. You need to look at your PPR and then what your opponent's PPR was, you know, because you might be a blocker, you might get their PPR down. Um, shout out to Johnson Stranger, because he almost had a perfect game against me in the national in Vegas, and I think the score was like 17-5 or something, and he was just killing me. He wasn't missing, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start blocking. I started blocking. We started throwing fours and fives and fours and sixes,
His 11.0 PPR went to an 8.5 or a 9 real quickly.
because I started blocking, and now instead of him getting 10 and 12s, now he's getting 5, 6s, and 8s. Uh, and it brought his PPR down
Yeah.
in our game. So that's I should have done that sooner. I should have realized it sooner. But again, you learn something new every day, especially when you look at stats.
Yeah.
You have to be conscious of maybe your play style is going to be different from one game to another, based on somebody's play style or PPR and so forth.
Mm-hmm. If you want to be a competitive cornhole player, social division, competitive division, advanced division, or you want to make your run to pro, you need to be paying attention to your growth. You need to have confidence in your growth, and you need to use your growth as confidence as you see yourself getting better over the last 6 months. Ride that cornhole high of, I've been on a streak lately. My PPR in the last 4 or 5 days, I've been averaging higher than I have in the last 6 months, and use that as like the opposite of a slump. Um, it can really pull you out. It can really put you on top, and it can help you get through the ranks a lot faster. There's a lot of people out there who have been playing for a year that started off as a social or competitive player, who are now an advanced player that gets quite a bit of respect. So stats are really important. Always remember, people lie, numbers don't. Stats don't care about nothing except how many bags you threw in the hole and how many bags your partner threw in the hole. And that's really what you need to start taking into consideration, because that is the direction that the game is going.
Yeah, don't be scared of the score tracker. Don't be scared of, even Scoreholio has a score tracker now,
Mm-hmm.
that does your PPR. So when you go to blind draws and you see basic scoring, or I think they call it magic scoring or whatever it is, don't be scared to put the magic scoring
Yeah.
to check your PPR. You want that. You want as much stats as possible to your game, so you could analyze it and grow from it. So thank you guys for listening on this episode of Growth. Hopefully, you're gonna start seeing your and taking your stats way more seriously that you haven't done before. Uh, get that platinum membership next year. Season starts in October, and hopefully you see improvements in your stats as the year progresses.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to use score tracker. Don't be afraid to move up a division. That's only going to help you grow and grow and grow more in this game. All right. So thanks a lot for listening. See you next episode.